So I wanted to talk about part of our commons, which, in my opinion, is under both a serious and a dangerous assault. And a part of the commons that is generally not even thought of as the commons, and that is the trust that we all have in our own government that we ourselves have created. I mean, typically when we talk about the commons, the stuff that we all own in common, we're talking about, our public parks or our roads or our public school systems, or in those places where you have publicly owned electric or sewage or water supplies, that those are part of the commons. And, rightly they are. I mean, definitionally they are. And that's, a big and important part of the commons. The fire department, the police department, the army, the air we breathe, the water we drink. This is all the commons. And this larger commons, or not larger commons, but this kind of multifaceted commons that I'm talking about here, in this list that I just went through of all these different dimensions of the commons, are massively under assault by wealthy interests, both corporate and private, as in billionaires and investors and whatnot, foreign governments even, that want the federal government to turn national parks over to the states so that the states can then privatize them, so that Rio Tinto can buy what used to be a park in Arizona, as happened, and build a giant copper mine or whatever they're going to do there. So that commons and other arguably parts of the commons, for example, Social Security. There's a fascinating piece in the New York Times today about Republican plans for Social Security. Now, it's not titled that. It's titled, "Think Your Retirement Plan is Bad, Talk to a Teacher." And it's by Tara Siegel Bernard on the October 21st, what was that, Friday's New York Times. And what Tara points out is that there are, in 12 states anyway, there are people who are public servants who are not eligible to get Social Security. They don't pay into it. They don't get money out of it. Or at least they don't pay into it while they're government employees or while they're in particular types of public service, like being teachers. And as a consequence of that, they're thrown into the tender mercies of the investment industry, which is exactly what Paul Ryan and all of his Republican buddies want to have happen to Social Security. So here we have an example. Right? For years and years, the Peterson Foundation and all these other groups that are funded by Wall Street billionaires who want that Social Security money to be running through Wall Street instead of through government. These groups have been saying, well, if you just gave people choice, if you just gave them lots of options, if you just gave them the ability to work with brokers and things, they could have so much more money than they're going to have in Social Security. Right. And it turns out it's a lie. And the proof of it is just look at what has happened in these 8 states where these teachers do not have access to Social Security. And so they have to invest in something called 403Bs, which are a special type of investment plan, which are set up just for public employees who don't qualify for Social Security. So this is clearly, in the Republicans' mind, this is where everybody in Social Security ends up. And they start out by talking about, Margaret Jasinski. Just got to know her investment broker through the breakfast he provided when he visited her public school in the leafy suburbs of New Jersey, where she teaches middle school. The teachers only recently learned how much those meals actually cost them. Had she been able to choose a simpler, less expensive plan instead of the broker's costly offering, Ms. Jasinski would have approximately 20% more in her savings, according to an analysis performed by the New York Times. One colleague would have a balance 50% fatter. And so goes the list. Millions of people who saved in 403B plans may be losing nearly $10 billion every year in investment fees. Now, keep in mind, this is the tiniest slice of a tiny slice, right? The number of people who are not eligible for Social Security is very small. And of that group, teachers is even smaller, and it's only in like 12 states. And so far, the investment industry has been able to squeeze an estimate, according to the New York Times, this is according to a recent analysis by AON, a retirement consultant, $10 billion, not invested, $10 billion skimmed off the top of your investment accounts and put into the pockets of Wall Street billionaires. And that's with what? 1%, 2%, 3% of the working population? 4%? What if it was 100%? Can you imagine? Right now, there are $879 billion in 403B assets, a little less than $1 trillion. It would be multiple trillions if we get rid of Social Security. And then if you want to get out of one of these programs, you've got to pay. So, they say, for instance, many teachers are encouraged to invest in high-cost variable annuities, typically explained in thick instruction manuals filled with jargon. Buyers who later decide they want to move money into lower-cost investment vehicles often learn their savings are being held hostage. Pay a surrender fee or the money must remain in the annuity. Mark Eichenlaub, a 7th grade language arts teacher who coaches cross-country track in Flossmoor, Illinois, decided to pay the fee, about 5% of his balance, just so he could extricate himself from a variable annuity sold by AXA, which subtracted more than 2.34% of his balance each year. Now, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but, right now bonds are paying around 1%. Getting 2% a year is, from an investment is considered actually really good. Most people are at zero or losing money on their investments, or many people. And here, the investments themselves are charging you 2.34% a year. So every year you get to lose money. Back, years and years ago, we had a business in Atlanta, and Louise opened an IRA with a couple. I think it was $3,000 was the limit then, and we just kind of forgot about it, just set it aside, and there it was. I mean, you can't do anything with them until you're 65 anyway. And last year, we got a statement from our bank, and it was either 105 or 150, I forget which, just letting us know that they'd taken that out as the annual management fee for her IRA, which is down now to about $1,600. Crazy. This is what Paul Ryan and the Republicans want to do for you. Karen S., a 62-year-old widow nearing retirement who agreed to discuss her situation if her last name was not used to protect her family's privacy. At the end of 2015, she would have had an additional $113,000 in savings, nearly 50% more, had she not paid approximately $37,500 in commissions and various fees over the previous 8 years, and instead had simply invested in a low-cost stock bond fund. And goes on with all these horror stories. And this is what you're going to have. But back to my original point. The reason that Republicans can get away with this, and my original point is that one of the most important part of the commons is our trust in government. And this is the part of the commons that the Reagan administration and the Reaganistas, the corporate and billionaire class that ran the Reagan White House and the Republican Party back in the 80s, decided, we've got to take this out first, and then we can take everything else, is trust in government. They had to turn Americans who, in 1980, the vast majority of Americans trusted the American government. They were loyal to the American government. They were proud of the American government. Many of them had relatives who had fought in World War II, who had volunteered to save, democracy around the world. And so, if we're going to dismantle the government, if we're going to do away with Social Security and privatize it, if we're going to do away with Medicare and privatize it, if we're going to turn our public roads into toll roads, if we're going to turn all of our schools into for-profit charter schools, if we're going to turn our entire healthcare system over to, for-profit leeches and predators, if we're going to deregulate our banks so that they can further screw our populace, if we're going to do everything, if we're going to relocate all our factories in Europe, in Asia, and not protect our domestic industries like they do in Europe with VAT taxes. If we're going to do all that stuff, first we have to make people so cynical about government that they won't pay any attention to what we're doing. So we have to destroy public trust. Robert Reich wrote an absolutely brilliant piece about this. He says the Republican Party as a whole has embraced this philosophy for more than 2 decades. After Newt Gingrich took over as Speaker of the House in '95, compromise was replaced by brinksmanship and normal legislative maneuvering supplanted by threats to close down the government, which occurred at the end of that year.